Hello everyone, my name is Christian, and today I'm doing my first Adventure August movie review, which is going to be the very recent Odyssey movie by Christopher Nolan. It came out like last week, something like that. And I'm someone who loves the Odyssey. I read it way back in high school, couldn't remember the ending, and then I reread it in college during a ancient civilizations class. I think it was Greek civilization class, and it was like the last semester of college, and I was like just looking for fun like classes, and I loved the Odyssey, and that was kind of the main kind of project for the class, was going through the entire Odyssey on one of the translations, going line by line and finding all the like true kind of events that happened in the Odyssey. And so I have a lot of knowledge about the Odyssey and like the events within it. The only thing I couldn't remember when I was coming into this movie was how Odysseus got home, because I couldn't really remember that. I remember we ran out of time by the end of the semester and we didn't get to that. So that was always something I was like wondering, like going in. And when this was announced as Adaptation by Christopher Nolan, I love The Dark Knight. That's like a 9.5 out of 10 in my opinion. And I also really love Inception. And so going into this, I knew I was coming in with really high expectations because I know what Christopher Nolan is capable of. And watching this movie, I have a very hard time, I had a hard time accepting some things, which is it felt like a very modern viewing of the story. I don't know if Christopher Nolan used a specific translation or not that was like more modern kind of eyes looking on the story, because I really did not like what they did with Odysseus's character. I did not really enjoy that he kind of became this and again, I can't remember the ending, but I do not remember him being very conflicted about the fall of Troy. I remember that being a very just sort of straightforward event. And the movie kind of frames Odysseus as this very tragic guy who, although he let in, his army and Agamemnon's, is that how you say his name? I can't remember. I wish I had subtitles in the theater. But even though he allowed them to come into the city and basically rape and pillage everything, the movie still frames him as someone who's very like flawed, and he should not be kind of beating himself over what happened and all this stuff. And there's definitely this kind of redemption type of storyline going on for him, and kind of accepting the things that he's done in the past and having to listen to people better and all that. And all that to say, I think Matt Damon was fantastic as Odysseus. I just did not care for the changes, or what I think are the changes to his character. I loved the costuming in this movie too. I just want to talk about some positive things right quick. I really love the costuming. I love the cinematography. I felt like Christopher Nolan's his cinematographer is just like awesome. He knows what the homework assignment is and he really knocks it out of the park. And I really felt like this was probably the best looking sword and sandals movie I've ever seen. And all that to say, it is not my favorite. I also really loved the soundtrack to this movie. And there were two sequences that were just perfect in my mind. Exactly how I viewed it when I was reading the Odyssey for the first time and the second time. And these were the two encounters with the Cyclops and also with the witch who turns Odysseus's men into animals. And I just loved those sequences so much. It was very terrifying. I thought it was just perfect. I just really loved the Cyclops too. I wish they gave him more dialogue though, because there's a lot more dialogue in the original story, and he's just kind of a mindless monster in this movie, and he gets like a little bit of lines just so they can react and be like, whoa, he talks, when they know that he can talk in the original story the moment they go in. And I really loved the witch section as well, because during the witch section, this was a section I remembered, but I didn't know how Christopher Nolan was going to deal with this. And he dealt with it in the most terrifying, perfect way I've ever seen. And what I ever thought anyone would do. It was like fucking Peter Jackson, like Shelob's Lair type, like terrifying. Because she's going in there, she's like feeding them food, and they're like really addicted to this food, eating. And then like they get like completely entranced by her. And then she like starts massaging the faces and like putting her fingers in the mouth and like reworking the skulls, and it turns them into the animals that we know that were from the original story. And I thought this section was so much better than what the original story was. I do not remember. I think they just switched. Like the moment that his mate went in, Odysseus comes in later and then finds them as animals. So I loved that Christopher Nolan showed that scene. I thought it was so disgusting. And everyone around me was squirming in their seats, and I was just like so happy. Because I love those type of like David Cronenberg, very scary type of sequences. And I think that witch scene just really encapsulated that the best. And when I saw the interview with Christopher Nolan recently, where he's like, I really want to do a horror movie, I was like, that section in particular, and the Cyclops section, I was like, I'm sold. I want to see a Christopher Nolan horror movie. That would be amazing. I would love it. I want to see it. I think I'm done with him doing adaptations. Maybe he could do Dante's Inferno. I don't know. But like, there's really not many horror stories that come to mind. Maybe like a Dead Space movie or something like that. I don't know. But let me get into the things I did not like about the movie. First and foremost, I felt like a lot of the cast was miscast. I feel like Elliot Page was fantastic and was not in the movie enough. He should have been Odysseus' son, I felt like, because the sections with Elliot Page was so well acted, and just his facial range was just a lot more wide than Tom Holland. Like, Tom Holland has a lot of charisma, I think, as an actor, but I do not care for anything he has done. Except for maybe Spider-Man. But Spider-Man, I don't like those movies. I just feel like he needs, better scripts to work with. I think he is a good actor when he can be put on good material. And this was not it. I felt like, I don't know, I groaned every time he came up on the camera, because everyone around him was acting circles around him. I feel like Robert Pattinson, his character was just carried that section. I feel like he, Anne Hathaway's character, Penelope, and Mia Goth, I think those three characters held Odysseus's home setting the most. I felt like they really filled in a lot of kind of empty space that Tom Holland should have filled. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little harsh on him, but he was not in the right role, is basically what I want to say. And Elliot Page maybe should have been Odysseus' son. That would have been awesome. I actually really enjoyed Zendaya as Athena. I thought she just really had that air of a goddess down. The way that she was directed was perfect. And I felt like she was going toe-to-toe with Matt Damon on a lot of scenes, on more intense emotional scenes. It was very refreshing when everyone was back together. Anytime Odysseus was having his stuff, his scenes, I was loving the movie. And I will say the first 40 minutes of the movie was an absolute slog. It should have been 5 minutes, 10 minutes max, because Tom Holland, that's the majority of the focus in the first 40 minutes, is his character and how much he misses his dad and all that is very important stuff. But this movie is so repetitive, and it's 3 fucking hours long. And the entire time, I just kept having to not look at my phone and look at how much time has passed, because I was watching my life burn away in a lot of scenes where it felt like Dune Part 2 at times, where it was a whole lot of empty space of just shots of things happening, or Matt Damon like misremembering, because this movie is very non-linear, which I really enjoyed. I love that structure a lot, kind of where we are slowly learning everything that's happened to Odysseus, and we don't really see him the first 40 minutes, which I think on paper it sounds great. Like, I really love that idea, but the execution of it was very weak. And Anne Hathaway was, acting circles around Tom Holland, and she was just awesome every scene. I don't know if that was Nicole Kidman who played kind of that goddess. What flower was it? It was like a lily leaves. I thought she was okay, but like her sections was just so fucking long. It was so like, if I felt like I was getting hit in the head. I was like, I get it. Okay, like she's purposely poisoning him and purposely making him misremember so he stays with her. That's a major section of the book. And I don't mind that. But with the way that the movie did it, it was just constant like, you gotta remember. And then he does a little bit, and we rewatch a lot of the same footage over and over again as various characters get their own perspectives on it. It's kind of like Rashomon, except it's not Rashomon-like at all in terms of quality, like, Kurosawa and stuff. And that's why I was thinking of Dune Part 2 a lot, because I felt like there was a lot of kind of just empty shots just happening to justify the IMAX kind of price. Because I'll be honest, I do not feel like this was worth the almost $30 that I spent on the IMAX ticket. This was 3 hours. It should have been a 2 hour, 15 minutes at most. Because Christopher Nolan, like Dark Knight, that movie is just from minute 1 all the way to the end. I do not get bored. So he can do it. I know he can. And this is why I came in with a lot of expectations. And unfortunately, he did not meet them. And the IMAX just really did not justify the price. And it was very upsetting as I was sitting there being like, I was so like bored and unimmersed in the movie, because it was just so repetitive. I felt like just repeating the same shot over and over again. And of course, the best sections of the movie for me were the fantasy stuff, but I was a little correct in my prediction, because this was something I was talking to a friend about. I was like, I don't know how much Christopher Nolan is going to bring in the more mythological elements. Like, he's going to have the Cyclops, of course. He's going to have, these characters. But how much is he going to lean into that? How much of the dialogue between Odysseus and the Cyclops and his men will they include? And they included, like, none of it, because my favorite section of the Cyclops in the original story is when Odysseus and him are kind of having kind of like a Gollum and Bilbo type of debate, where they're trying to figure out each other's names, and Odysseus is like, I'm nobody. And so there's this really funny moment where, like, they escape the Cyclops, and as they're leaving, the Cyclops is like, nobody hurt me, and all this stuff. And like, it's a really fun like wordplay. And I saw an interview with Nolan where he said like, yeah, it wouldn't work on screen, so we didn't include that section. I'm like, well, fuck. So I knew going in we weren't going to get that, and I was very disappointed, because I love that section of the book. And yeah, there was just a lot of expectations I went into this with, and I just really love, too, that they actually did put in the dog, August, I believe his name is, Odysseus's dog, although I think I don't know, I feel like they didn't really, I felt like they brushed past it just to have it, but they didn't really fully explore it, because at the end of the movie, Odysseus comes back. Of course, this story's been out for 3,000 years, and he gets back, and only the dog recognizes his master, Odysseus. And so he wags his tail, and then Odysseus bends down and pets him. In the movie, in the books, he walks past the dog, and the dog dies, because he finally, he got that closure of knowing his master's alive, and he's been holding on for 20-something years, really old dog. And it's a very emotional moment in the story, and I love it, because Odysseus, you get his entire mind frame, kind of as he's walking past the dog, and he's like just controlling himself, trying not to look at the dog, and he, you know, cries, and it's a really lovely moment. And they kind of did it in the movie, but I feel like they really brushed past that moment, enough to the point where you couldn't really sit with the feelings. It was just kind of like, Odysseus walks in, pets the dog dies, okay, next scene. And I was like, damn, like, we had all this build up with the dog, and then we don't even spend a second. And like, it would have made sense if he had gone with Odysseus walks past his dog. But because he made the change of him bending down and like confirming that he is Odysseus to his dog, I feel like there's a lot of kind of, I don't know, I just felt like it was very like, it was just very kind of like, okay, like you didn't, it just felt like a needless change, and it kind of lessened the scene for me, lessened the ending. But I will say, aside from the two fantasy sections I talked about, my absolute favorite moment ever, or scene, is when Matt Damon reveals himself to Anne Hathaway as Odysseus, and is like, I'm back, and you guys are fucked, all you fucking suitors. I feel like Christopher Nolan made the suitors even better than the original writings, but I hated the suitors when I first read it, so I think I was just skimming those sections. I was like, I hate these characters so much. But Christopher Nolan, I think, really nailed the suitors. And it was so fun to see Matt Damon's character, Odysseus, just go ham on everybody. And one by one, you see people in the back slowly start to kneel down as they realize, like, oh shit, like, this is Odysseus. He's killing all of us, and he's just hunting us down, like, in this small room, just shooting at us. Like, it's amazing. I love that moment. I'm very curious what other people think of that scene, because I knew that was coming. I knew he did kill all of the suitors eventually, but I forgot just how, like, bloody it was. And I do kind of wish this movie was rated R. Maybe it is. It didn't feel like it. There was, like, no blood. I really loved the Cyclops eating people. Like, that was very grotesque and bloody, and I enjoyed that. But, like, I was very disappointed by the Giants Island. I felt like it was just very brushed over very quickly. Like, I wish we had spent more time on those scenes instead of scenes of Matt Damon and Nicole Kidman on a beach trying to remember, even though she is purposely misleading him. Like, I was so sick of those scenes. Every time those came back, I was like, oh my God, like, please be done with this. Like, it was just, yeah, I'm just rambling, I feel like, but I did somewhat enjoy the movie, but I'm going to have to give it like a 6 out of 10. Like, those two scenes in particular in the ending, like, really propped the rating up for me, because I felt like it was a 4 out of 10 for most of the movie. Again, the first 40 minutes should have been like 10 minutes. And then the next hour after that was awesome. I did not like how they did Charybdis and Abaya, the two gods or whatever. I can't remember exactly what they are, but I think they are kind of like god, you know, creature things. I did not like the very, like, I don't know, it was just so weird how they did the tentacle monster. The whirlpool was perfect, it was fine. But the other creature I did not like at all. It was very disappointing. I'd rather have had a giant shirtless guy, like in Clash of the Titans or Jason the Argonauts, where he's like against the cliff, trying to keep the rocks from falling on the ships. Like, that was a fun section. I enjoyed that scene more than Charybdis. That's what's so funny to me, because I did come in with a lot of expectations. So I don't know. I feel like I'm out of gas talking about this review. That's basically my thoughts. Like, it was just disappointing. I'll do a tier list. I need to kind of relook at the list of movies Christopher Nolan has done and get my final opinion out, because so far this might be my least favorite by him. because he is like such a great director. So it's very disappointing, but hey, at least I got the Cyclops scene just perfect, the witch scene, and the ending. So at least I got that. So thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you think of the movie, and whether you agree with me. I'm very curious about this. I feel like I was really hoping it was like a 9 out of 10 at the minimum. I thought that's what it was going to be, but it wasn't. So, oh well. Thank you all so much for watching, and please have a great rest of the day.